Hello indeed. Good morning to you. Good evening to you around the world. Welcome to The Grey Cricketer, presented to you by Custom Swimwear by Budgie Smuggler, budgiesmuggler.com, all made in Australia. A grim week all round for cricket, obviously starting with a Shane Warne's passing. Australia, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, England and West Indies, the Women's World Cup. Todd Greenberg, the head of the ACA, is on the show. And we've also pieced together your speak pipes in memory of Shane Warne's passing. It's been a few days now. Sam Perry. Let's just get straight into the death of the king, I suppose. I know we pieced together sort of 30 minutes, which will be on your podcast feeds and on YouTube and et cetera, wherever you get this. But we pieced together a 30-minute thing, sort of an immediate reaction about how we all felt, and it still feels to me really surreal. Not quite like it's still not true. I suppose there'll be a state funeral, and you know, we've seen news about, you know, like the Great Southern Stand, the MCG will now be called the SK Warne Stand, and all these things. But I just, you know, I still feel like when summer comes around next year that, you know, the king will still be on commentary. It still doesn't feel normal yet.
Yeah, g'day, he goes. That's right. It doesn't feel normal. It feels surreal, and we've obviously heard or read statements from his family, which were, you know, devastating to read, to be honest. And by the same token, though, there's been some, you know, unbelievable tributes out there as well, and I have enjoyed watching them. I've enjoyed watching the myriad clips that are out there now as well, and just to do another Warne immersion, you know, probably the 60,000th one I've done, you know, and many of us have done as well. I thought, you know, people wrote so well about it as well. I really enjoyed Barney Ronay's article. I enjoyed Russell Jackson's article, or obit really, to Warne, and those guys put that stuff together really quickly. You know, also worth noting, since we last recorded, you know, Rod Marsh passed away as well, and a guy who had a storied Australian cricket career, not just on the field, but a huge contribution off as well. But you know, and there's no need to really compare, but the Warne death is just it just looms so large. It's a huge pall over Australian sport, Australian cricket, and world cricket. And just to that end as well, it was we'll introduce this later. I mean, we're going to probably race through the cricket here, to be honest. Like a lot of it feels a little bit of a lower priority, or putting things in perspective. But it was just an incredible experience to listen to every single voice message that was sent through, and an enormous thank you to everybody who did that. I've done my best to put together as many as possible. Those that couldn't make it, it was that these were tech issues really, or just sound issues. So looking forward to introducing that later, and to everyone who wrote in as well, an enormous thanks. You obviously just, you know, touched so many people, you know. So yeah, it's but just been a really strange and like discombobulating few days. But you know, we've done our best to try and honor the man, honor the great man, and we'll do that today as well.
I found watching, like, just seeing the myriad clips around, like all the highlights, all the great memories that he gave us, confusing in two capacities. Confusing in that, like, it was just such a, you know, all the euphoric memories that the player gave us, you know, and sort of, there's like eras of Warne based on like weight and hairstyles and tan, and it's all wrapped up in the sort of circus that was the man as well, outside of the player. But it's sort of, it gives me like a tinge of sadness as well, that it's just, he hasn't played in like 15 years, but then it's just over. Like, I guess I'm dealing with like the nature of death in itself. Isn't like that person isn't on the planet anymore. That's what I was saying before at the very top. You know, I just still expect him to be on Fox's coverage next summer when our summer rolls around next year. It's just it's bizarre. I think seeing the state funeral whenever, have they even announced when that is yet? I don't think so. Not sure. But just like seeing like the casket and stuff, I feel like it's just there's some reality to that, which I don't even know if I'm prepared for. Yeah, I don't know, man. But then you said this really eloquently on the sort of 30-minute thing that we put out a few days ago on Shane's passing. That now I've just completely lost my train of thought because it's that time in the morning we've been in Pakistan all night.
I think, mate, what you're talking about, I mean, that's grief, you know, people are grieving, and it's strange. It's strange because a lot of us didn't really know him, and yet, so passing that in your mind, or in our collective minds, is its own, like, requires its own train of thought. But a lot of people are grieving for various reasons, depending on their age and where Warne came into their lives, and just trying to work out what influence he did have. And it's kind of it's almost scary what kind of influence he had. You know, I mean, I've been wondering what my relationship to cricket would even be, which this sport that's that's now accounts for a career, for now, until we say something wrong. But yeah, like. And I think that funerals, they're helpful for those things. They're difficult, but they're helpful, and I'm glad it's a state funeral. It's very Warnie, and it's going to be big, and it's been really comforting, I think, to listen to people reflect on Warnie as well, mate. Because, like, every so often when you're listening to people, whether it's radio, podcast, reading, stuff on video, like, someone will say something like, "Yeah, that's right," and I enjoyed one from an Irish podcast that I listened to. It mainly does football, but other ones called Second Captains, where so they're a little bit distant from cricket, but they nailed it because they're really good. And one of the guys, Kieran, sort of said that he played in the Australian way as well, which was sort of boorish but brilliant. And he really did sum up the way that we wanted to play sport as well. It was sort of the perfect encapsulation of all of that. And how many times did Warne bail Australia out as well? Like there's a bit of a thought about that team, that when teams got close to them, they might have capitulated, but they just rarely got close to them, because Warne would bowl 36 overs in a day. And if they're ever in trouble or they needed something, Warne could make something happen. Sort of going back into just him as a player now. But I'm just left thinking, for what it's worth, that if there's any figure that is, at least in an abstract way, going to live on, it's Warne. He's just so ever present, and he will be. He really, really left a mark, didn't he? I'm not sure I've encountered anybody's left a bigger mark in a sporting sense. And then I suppose the flow onto the cultural stuff as well. So, we're still obviously working through it, but it's been great to really revel in the love for the man, and for everybody to come together around that.
Yeah, I recall what I was going to say before I lost my train of thought in mid-sentence, but the sort of hierarchy of grief and reading things put out by Brooke Warne and then Jackson Warne, his son, just just the loss of a father at such a young age, and these are young people as well, who have now lost their dad, and that's just devastating. And I sort of wonder, like, I feel like the more time that comes out and there's more interest about, how this happens, like there's, was it purely just cardiovascular disease, or was there something, more nefarious than that? I feel like it doesn't matter, like it's, whatever it was just, there was a warniness to it, and it doesn't take away from, the grief of especially his family and his close friends, and also just what the indelible mark that he left on the game and the Australian community, not just the cricketing community. I mean, he's on second cap, but guys on second captains talking about it's pretty broad reach for the fucking king. So I hope that like whatever comes out next, because there's news outlets that are gonna try and get information there to sell salacious stories even in his death, which is such a tragic part of his life and the celebrity that follows celebrities. And I hope that doesn't like detract away from the tragedy that is the loss of a hero for many people and a father and a friend. But I suppose a lot of that's out of our control. Plus, I've had some good stories, and have a look at it. But
well, it's Warnie. What have you done now, Warnie?
That's right.
I remember you got Facebook memories coming up, and I've seen a lot of people sort of say, look, he was cricket's Maradona and stuff, and sure, I remember 10, maybe even more years ago, when you would write dumb shit on Facebook. I remember coming home completely pissed and starting to write, and this keeps popping up in my Facebook memories every year.
This will be good.
Yeah, Warne would knock over Maradona. I just thought Warne would knock over Michael Jordan. Just a juvenile adult reimagining these sporting icons as cricketers batting, and how Warne would get them out. And just people and just pops up every year because it attracted a lot of comment, particularly the suspicion that I was heavily drunk at the time. But that's the kid in you, that comes out, isn't it? Those comparisons are silly. But it's been nice to really immerse in a lot of that stuff in the last few days, and I'm sure everybody else is the same and will continue to do so. I'll tell you what, if you've got children, especially young, it doesn't matter whether it's a son or a daughter, just be careful before you turn Warn Vision on in front of them. If you want to avoid crying in front of your children, is something when you just combine your hero dying and your young kids, that's a hell of a recipe. That's a hell of a recipe.
Fucking hell, man.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, man.
And chopping onions, Ted. Apologies.
Yeah. It's like me if I see soldiers coming home from war videos. See you later. I'm no good, mate.
Yeah, well, I just put that on if I actually want to feel something. We've spoken about that before. I just feel a bit numb.
That's right. Just saying to your two kids there, see you later, boys. See you later.
But then sometimes you see I saw the other day a soldier coming home video where the twist was his wife was cheating on him. So you're getting ready to... Hang on a second. I'm upset, but for a different reason. Well, it's a comedy show.
That's right. Two things. At the end of this show, Pez has pieced together as many speak pipes as possible to sort of get your guys' feelings and immediate reactions to how Warren made you feel and the life of the man that was. So that'll be at the end of this here episode. And also thank you to everyone who left messages or contacted us personally or publicly, in regards to the 30-minute show we put out on, was that Friday or Saturday? One of those 2 days whenever Shane passed. So we really appreciate that. And if you haven't listened to it yet, it's on your YouTube feed and it's on your podcast feed. You've spoken before, Pez, about how a lot of the cricket doesn't matter in the wake of Warren's passing, and that's absolutely right. Mate, I'm fucking pissed off with Pakistan Australia, that test match. That is I don't know why I'm so angry about it, but it was the worst game I've ever watched because I think it's because I don't like the sport. There's that, and I think it's because I knew it was going to be a draw for about 4 days, and nothing happened. I mean, I don't know what to do with that. There are lots of times cricket's a fucking great game. It's the best game. It's really good. And then this shit comes along. Fucking hell, man. It was a punish. And I'm upset. I'm upset about it. How do you feel about it? Did you like it?
Well, I don't think I'm angry like that. I can really hear that in your voice. But
sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I think it's like Pat Cummins said overnight that it's clear they made an effort to nullify our pace attack, and that might be right. It's kind of like, if maybe it's trying to dilute the amount of gin you put in that drink a little bit, and so you top up a bit of tonic, thinking you're being healthy, and you just And you just keep going. You're like, oh, fucking hell, there's no gin anymore. Like, it was. I don't know if you have that. People have told me about that. It's not really for me.
That's very specific.
I'm trying to think of examples of diluting things. I was going to go with cordial, but I was like, okay, what are you, fucking 9? Well, yes, I am. But
when was the last glass of cordial you poured for yourself?
up here in Darwin, there's nothing like a nice cordial, but it's sort of you upgrade it from your Cotties to your Bickfords, for example, just so you can feel a little bit, you can just deal with that status anxiety.
Like things are going well?
Did you get the Bickfords, bud? Yeah, it's like they just kind of diluted it too much. They gave it too much medication. You know, the ADD child, he's got no life to him anymore. Watch Garden State, believe me. Anyway, no, actually, I think medication could be helpful. I'm not against medication. Oh, God. Yeah, there was nothing. There was nothing in it, and Australia took... the concerning thing, I suppose, is that, like, Australia took 4 wickets and conceded, like, 700-odd runs over fucking two innings, and Pakistan still managed their 10, and that was on a pretty lifeless deck. It was, 15 wickets, 14 wickets in 15 sessions. That's ordinary. What else? Alex Malcolm in Crick Info said... I saw he's written it was a combined bowling average for Australia of 238.33, a strike rate of 478. It's the second worst in 145 years of Test cricket. I mean, people, we won't go over everything that happened in the game, because if you want that, we did like 80 minutes of content over 5 different pieces through the week. But upside, some runs. Khawaja played really well, I thought. All the bats except Travis Head scored runs, just about. But we didn't. It's hard to know what we learnt out of it, because it was just so, as Steve Smith said, benign.
I thought Australia actually bowled pretty well, to be honest, man. And I thought in the second innings that fucking does not count. I mean, like, they got 250, fucking all the best lads, honestly, all the best tier. It was a fucking waste of time. At the ends, like Travis had reliance overs. I think that there might be a bit of a problem. I think Stark, Cummins, Hazelwood only bowl about 10, 12 overs in the second.
No miles on the clock. Yeah.
No. Lyon bowled a lot of overs, though, and looked not threatening. Look, I got to say, a lot of Pakistan's bowls didn't look threatening. I know Norman Ali got 6 for, bowling some absolute fucking dog shit down the leg side. Just fucking barely, it was barely a contest, man. I'm upset about it. I'm upset of the lack of competition, the lack of engaging sport that was. Winning away from home, winning Test series away from home. We'll talk about England and West Indies in a moment. And Joe was just saying beforehand it'd be a significant achievement if they win in the West Indies, which would be, because I think the West Indies actually have beaten England the last time England were in the West Indies. But my point being, it's hard to win away from home, and Australia have 2 tests to try and win a game, because I think the third test is at Pindi Stadium as well, isn't it?
I don't think so.
The second,
I think they go.
Is it?
It's Karachi, then Lahore.
It's Karachi next.
Yeah.
Oh, then Lahore, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My mistake. But I think culturally, Australians batting in Asia and getting 470 or whatever they got is good. And I thought Australia bowled okay. I thought Australia bowled pretty well in the first innings. I mean, there's also a bit of a problem where if Pakistan are going to bat for 2 fucking days, like, what's the point of that? Like, I mean, it shows a bit of fear with Pakistan as well. I think that they didn't feel like they could ever win the game. Maybe they just backed rolling Australia out. But on that wicket, mate, it was a fucking joke. And if you want to listen to those reactions and more, patreon.com/great cricketer.
So great cricket to get, just disgust over the conditions. You know what I mean? This fucking...
I'm fucking disgusted.
I think one thing that... it'd be interesting to know how the Aussies feel privately. I thought one thing that was notable is that they didn't seem to show any any issue with how shit the wicket was. And how it offered nothing. They seemed to keep a level head the whole time, which is like I think previous Australian teams would have started getting angry or trying things and trying to create things out of emotion. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you have to do that. I don't know. It is one thing keeping an eye on, like that when there's not a lot doing in the wicket, they can look quite straight. The Aussies, they didn't get a lot of reverse, and neither team did. I think Lions want to keep an eye on as well. And yeah, like if you made changes, what change would you make? I saw a stat going around that just going round that if you had to remove a quick, well, you're removing one of Stark or Hazelwood, right? And Hazelwood's the bush horse, but he takes his so far he takes his wickets in Asia at 40. Stark takes his at 30. So that's an interesting one. I got a feeling just with Asia generally, it's gonna have to be two spinners at some point. Which spinner is it, and who do you get rid of?
Yeah, I think that they picked the right team for this Test match. No issues there. Swepson is an interesting one where he's just got to play at some point, and I don't know if there's been a game just yet since he's been in the squad. He's been in the squad for 2 years. I don't know if there's been a game that I've thought he must play this game, but it is getting to a point where it's he's in a lot of squads. Are you going to pick him? But
yeah,
it's not as black and white as that.
The thing is, with Asia, look at guys like Axar Patel or Steve O'Keefe that came before. When you can bowl left arm orthodox and use pace, you can really spear it into the wicket, which just because of the nature of the action, leg spinners can't really do that. That's the one that feels right for me. A left arm round the wicket, spearing it in. Can you get it to go straight or move away? And Agar's first class record suggests that he probably doesn't have the skill of the guys I just mentioned there before, but. That seems to me, Norman Ali's left arm over as well. It was a lot of sort of patient wickets there that he got, but the left arm orthodox seems to have a fair bit of success over there. I wonder if obviously Agar can bat as well. So be curious to see who they choose ahead of him. Whether they just go, Swepson's next cab, so let's play him. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree. I mean, you look at even Ajaz Patel, who got 10 for against India a couple of months ago, left arm orthodox. It's a natural variation where you can attack the stumps. You can get guys out many different ways. But I guess we'll see what happens next. I'm on the fucking edge of my seat. Now, an actual result that happened was India-Sri Lanka. India won by an innings and 222 runs, mate. India won the toss and had a stick, and they got 574 for 8. Jadeja hit 175, batting at 7. And then Sri Lanka got 174. And India thought, no, you guys have a go again. 178 all out. Jadeja takes 9 for 175. I think he was man of the match. Didn't quite catch that, but I think he might have been. Statistically, maybe the best ever. I'm not really sure what that means. Just numbers based. It's just fucking unbelievable, this guy. 175. 9 for
135 not.
Oh, red ink, was it?
Yeah.
Fucking hell. That is... I mean, Sri Lanka, so it's not great competition, but still.
Yeah, India test against Sri Lanka at home. That's a fucking cash-in summer, if there ever was one. But you got to score him. What a player, Jadeja. What a player. I also saw... Pump 96. If he'd converted all his 90s to hundreds, he would have, he'd have 9 test hundreds in 28 matches. But, if my brother wasn't my brother, he'd be my sister. Didn't do it. What? Ashwin went past Harath, Hadley and Kapil Dev. He's 4 wickets away from Dale Steyn. It's 435 test wickets. Not bad. Not bad for a bloke who sort of may or may not get a game for India. And I see, Axar's back. Axar Patel's back for the second test. Karuna Ratner's working hard in the net, so I'll give you the tip.
Yeah. Yeah. Tiramana's having a look at that.
They need the Manas, man.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the scorecard here. Everyone's sort of got going for India. It was just Yadav it was the only guy who didn't get double figures. Agarwal 33, Sharma 29, Vahare 58, Kohli 45. It's a broader conversation there about Smith what did Smith get, 78 or something, 80 in the Pakistan test match, and then there's those sort of numbers going around. He hasn't converted hundreds like he was, in his peak, and Kohli hasn't got 100, I think, since the mid-90s or something now. And I think I said this a while ago, but it feels like the peak of these guys, they'll all score more hundreds. It's not over. But we have seen the best of them, I feel like. They've got lots to give, but that, the fucking top of the game, best in the generation. I feel like it's gone. It's weird. It's weird with Kohli. Like he's got so many scores between like 30 and 75. And Smith would be broadly the same. I wonder what's in that. Is it a lack of the 1% that you need at the top level, like the hunger, like that absolute pure desire to achieve the heights? It's like once you've got to the top, where do you go again? I wonder if it's that. I mean, or maybe he's just a bit out here now. I don't know.
I think Kohli and Smith are different. Like Kohli's one is interesting because with Smith, like you can see that bowlers have, I wouldn't say worked him out, but he's certainly found it much harder to score when they bowl short to him and stack the leg side and they dry up his runs. You know, that's been the case for like 3 years. He's averaged like 35 or something. Kohli doesn't seem to have as clear a technical issue. I mean, bowlers do just hover it outside on the fifth stump line and they prey on his strength, you know, which is through the covers. But you know, that's that strikes me as a precision question. And like the guy's so fit, so I don't know. Like it's not an eyes going thing. I just have a feeling Kohli's got another run in him. And you know, he's had, and by run I don't literally mean a cricket run, which you could be forgiven for thinking because we're talking about batting runs. But he seems to he's been going through a fair bit with the BCCI as well. Maybe a little bit more stability around just his position and his leadership and where he sits in Indian cricket. Maybe that will help. I don't know. I just feel like you still see his shots. He's still got the game. I feel like him not scoring 100 for a couple of years is like that feels like a real anomaly. And there's going to be a cascade at some point. And he's obviously not doing it against Sri Lanka. And there's another tour coming up against another team I can't quite remember in India. And I just don't know. I don't know. I just feel like the guy. There's some runs coming for him.
He's such a fascinating character, though, because we've spoken about this in the past. He's just he's in the legacy years, like he's in these legacy building years, which I think is why him losing the ODI captaincy would have hurt the most. They've obviously got a home World Cup coming up, don't they, for the 50 over stuff, and him captaining that and winning that would have been part of his dynasty. But I kind of feel like he might be in a bit of a limbo where he doesn't have the. He probably wants to be usurp Dhoni in terms of popularity and have that like legacy. It's funny that we're talking about Kohli when fucking Jadeja's taken 9 for 175. Maybe we'll talk about him in a second, but he's such an interesting person because he is the leading three format player in this generation of players, probably since AB de Villiers retired. And so it's such a weird thing that he hasn't scored an international 100 in so long. So I just wonder what that's about. Maybe we should talk about Jadeja, man. And there's lots of good cricketers, lots of good all rounders. Ben Stokes is pretty good. Cameron Green might be good one day. But Jadeja is just like, what the fuck is that? 175 and 9 for come on. That's a year 12 kid playing in the under sevens. That's a joke. I mean, he is just always in the game, and he's probably the best fielder in the world. Forget about that. He probably is the best. He's in the conversation. He's top 3. But would he play in our team?
Would he play in our team? Yeah. I don't know. I got a feeling he'd get a game.
Who does he get in for, mate?
Yeah. I think he'd get a game. It's just funny with those guys, isn't it? Like he's still. It's still hard to think of him as not anything but like a jack of all trades. He's just a really good jack of all trades, really, really good. Yeah. So, and, probably pretty decent on the circuit too.
I reckon so. Good salad. That's our celebration I can get in the bin because I don't like it. So therefore, he should change that. Looking forward to seeing Sri Lanka bounce back in the second test. They'll be looking for a response. And other things you're supposed to say as a pro athlete. The Women's World Cup, Sam Perry. The most important thing about this is that the Australian cricket team are winning, and they're winning big. They won their first game against England. They got 310, I want to say, and then England got 290 in response. So Australia won that game. England are the defending champions, as we all know. So that was a big start for Australia to win that game. And then last night they cleaned up Pakistan comfortably. They chased down 193 down. Alisa Healy and some more runs. So Australia. There's only a handful of teams. I think they are top of the 8 team table. Only a couple of teams have played 2 games, and Australia's on 4 points. Therefore, it's now ours to lose, baby.
Yeah, baby. Rachel Haynes, 130 or something like that, was it? And
Yeah, that's okay.
yeah, not bad. And you're right. I mean, I just need to look at it and see. Yeah, undefeated, good. I thought England could have presented a real speed bump, a real banana skin.
Oh yeah,
Just because we beat them 87 times over the summer, and then you play them in a game
Yeah.
that really matters, and you're like, you know, that could be that's fine. It was close-ish, and Alana King, brilliant delivery there as well. I don't know who she got out, but anyway. And what else we're looking at here goes so they've got New Zealand in Wellington on Sunday, Australia. So that's the I guess the host, and Ash Gardner's got COVID, and Heather Graham's a replacement.
Yep.
Best game so far though was the opener, West Indies, New Zealand. He goes, and it sort of was really to and fro. And DeAndre Dotton, who we presented last week as potentially being village for wearing a beanie in a trial game, but more with a caveat of like, is it village or is it cool? Well, she was ice cool. New Zealand lost 3 wickets in that final over, and West Indies emerged. But yeah, I expect Australia to win undefeated. Don't want anyone to get close to them.
Big game for New Zealand actually, because they lost that first game, as you said there, against the West Indies. So if they losing 2 games in an 8-team tournament, not ideal, one would say.
Sorry if there's a bit of background
West
noise
Indies-
before as well. I kept my air conditioning on accidentally, and I've turned it off. So if you see me sweating deluxe, well, just another reminder that I'm in the top end. And fuck me, wet season, Christ, it's just 33 degrees every day and fucking heaving. Cheers.
It's either hot or someone's going through your hard drives. West Indies versus England.
Sitting here on my computer, God, Bez is sweating. It's either really hot outside or someone's literally right next to him, going through his hard drives on his laptop. Got an
Got the
external,
AFP.
yeah, an external hard drive in there. Going through them.
West, just going through them with a comb, and a fine tooth one at that. None of this thick comb shit.
I have heard of AFP officers that do go through that stuff with a bit too much of a fine tooth comb. Anyway, if you catch my drift.
West Indies and England are entangled in a test series. England won that. This has happened. The day one's just happened overnight as we go to air. England won the toss, and they, good luck to them. They thought, we're going to have a go at batting. And they found themselves 27 for 3, then 48 for 4. And then young Johnny Bairstow, 109, red ink, red-faced, red lions, and other stuff that's red, batting at 6, and England finished the day at 268 for 6. Very respectable. I feel like this is going to be a really good series. England are trying some shit. They've got Lees opening the batting with Crawley now, and Bairstow taking the gloves. Is Bairstow taking the gloves, or is Folkes playing?
Folkes is playing.
Folkes is playing. Folkes is playing. So that's something. That's definitely something for the eyes there. That's definitely some trappings for the eyes. But it's hard to escape the question of the Butler-Bairstow thing, because Bairstow seems to be doing pretty well when Joss isn't playing. And maybe that's just complete coincidence, but there's been a thing their entire career, and Bairstow is said to be upset about his sort of his treatment around like losing the gloves and being manipulated all around the order. He's a guy that plays for England who can score test hundreds. That's a pretty valuable asset.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Firstly, kiss the ring. Joss Butler, hell of a player.
Hell of a player.
Is it that they really tried everything to get him into Test cricket and to make him as high an impact player as possible, given how clearly talented he is, prodigiously talented he is. And yeah, it's interesting. It hasn't quite worked out to the level that people would have liked, and also what impact has it had on another player in Johnny Bairstow in a situation where batting and runs after Joe Root were pretty hard to come by anyway. And it's that read on Bairstow sort of sitting in Butler's shade for a while is something I hadn't really considered that much because Bairstow's his own enigma. But I did see a few comments to that effect around the Ashes, and it's true. I mean, Bairstow is such a dynamic player. He's also in all three formats too. And also Test cricket, and all the while there was just this incredible player they had there ready to go. And I saw Johnny Liu overnight tweet that Bairstow's Test batting average with Jos Buttler's 29.4 and without Jos Buttler's 38.9, pretty sizable difference. You're giving up a lot of runs there to try and crowbar Buttler into the side, and now already, I mean, it's easy to say in hindsight, but he finishes not out overnight with a ton to his name, and yeah, mate. So all along it was Bairstow. Bairstow was the guy, and I like. Hey, with respect to Buttler, Buttler, that's all well and good, but I'm a Bairstow guy, and it was really nice to wake up this morning and just see, hello, Bairstow runs, alert. So well done, YJB. We'll always hold a candle for you, brother.
And also, Folks has got 42 here. I suspect that it's got a little bit easier to bat as the day's gone on, but Bairstow's 109 stands. I mean, no one else has got to 50. It stands out significantly. Even Wokes at the end there's chipped in with 24. Stokes next high score with 36. It's Folks has got a pretty decent Test record going. He hasn't necessarily played in the big series. He played against Sri Lanka, and I think his first class average is 30. So it's not sensational, but his Test record's stacking up pretty good for a guy who has always been in the shadow of like three other keepers. Actually four, because I think even Ollie Pope has been ahead of him at times. But look at this batting lineup: Lees, Crawley, Roots, Lawrence, Stokes, Bairstow, Folks, Wokes. It's still pretty shit, but but there's something there. Then I mean. If you get Bairstow, you get a guy at 6 who's going to sort some runs for you. There's something there now. So he's having a bit of a golden year, Bairstow, after his SCG ton. I don't know. I just hope that everyone's happy.
It's funny, mate, isn't it? Like
right,
I think Ollie Pope is going to be part of that team, and I even thought that he looked quite bright at the Gabba against the Aussies, and then, they worked him out. It's just funny, isn't it, that we know that different conditions bring out different qualities in players, and Pope got the gong in the hardest series against Australia. He failed, and now he misses out on the potentially more cash-in runs in West Indies. I would just stick with him. Anyway, that's just me.
I can sort of see with Pope, I fancy he might have a similar career trajectory to Ian Bell. Now, I know his technique is compared to that, but what I mean by that is if you stick with him long enough, I feel like there might be a run of sort of 2-3 years where he's in the top 3 batters in the world. I sense that might be a thing for him, but he's got to show you something in between. I mean, Ian Bell scored 15 Test hundreds, something like that, and maybe a little bit more than that. And he was sort of he was prodding them along a little bit. He picked up the odd 100 here and there. Ollie Pope's problem is that he wasn't showing us enough. He's got 1 Test 100 in 20 tests, and I sense that by the time he's in his early 30s, he might be a seriously international standard good player. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, they've also got from the county
championship. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Is Dan Lawrence the guy? Okay, let's just give him games.
yeah. Can he keep and bowl some offies as well? Anyway, when England lose that game, that'll be fun as well for us. All right, Pez. We spoke to Todd Greenberg, head of the ACA. He was in Pakistan. And we asked him a myriad of questions, and also really wrestled with the Wi-Fi there in Islamabad. But we got there. We got some stuff at him and a few laughs. But before we get to that, we need to thank our dear friends at Budgie Smuggler. Sam Perry. We're talking about custom designs. So we're doing about again.
We're talking about custom designs.
Budgie Smuggler, all made in Australia.
We also, and I don't think you'd mind us saying this, we also had Tim David lined up for the show this week, the $1.5 million man. But he couldn't do it for various reasons, so we're postponing it. But just want you to know that we had him for a second. We had something in the calendar. So just now people can know that and not experience that interview. Budgie Smuggler. Well, I thought for the custom design suggestion this week, here goes, budgiesmuggler.com. It's I wanted to honour the flattest wickets of all time, at least this century.
Fuck yeah.
I did a little bit of digging. You can't go past the MCG 2017-18. Alistair Cook 244, where they decided to wheel out Jackson Bird to destroy his back to save those of others.
Yes.
MCG 2017-18, staying with Australia, Adelaide 2019-20, David Warner 335, disrespecting Bradman. I don't know if you want to put sort of the picture of the wicket on your smugglers, or the picture of the scoreboards, or David Warner disrespecting Bradman, maybe David Warner next to Bradman.
See, for me, it was that game was actually more about Yasir Shah's 100 than it was Warner's 335.
Put Yasir on there. Yeah, that's right. But here goes. The Australia focus is silly. People have been saying that all along about our show, particularly when we covered Australia, Pakistan on YouTube. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
India versus Pakistan 2007. Here goes. A 3-test series.
Yeah, this is the good one. This is the good one.
A 3-test series in India. India go 1-up in a pretty closely fought game, 250 plays 200 through the 4 innings. Next test, Eden Gardens. India 616 for 5 declared. Wasim Jaffer 202. Pakistan 456. India 184 for 4 declared. Pakistan 214 for 4. 1,400 odd runs. Half the wickets of the game fell, and that was. I think India might have rolled out a road, having been 1-0 up. But that's all right, because there was one game to go. There was one game for Pakistan to salvage something out of the series. It was at Chinnaswamy Stadium, Bangalore. 626 India plays Pakistan's 527. India then makes 284 for 6 declared. Pakistan 162 for 7. Dada with 239. Now, that is a couple of blokes having a stick, I reckon.
Get this bloke off the fucking bowling machine.
So, if you'd like to honour any of those games or flat wickets, however you'd like to, you can do so with your custom design smugglers at budgiesmuggler.com.au. Use the code CHAMP. See what happens. Something might happen. Here goes the interview as well. See what happens.
Something might happen.
The interview is brought to you by T20 Stars as well. The interview with Todd, which we caught up with him a couple of days ago when he was in Islamabad. T20 Stars, slick online customer journey. This is where you can get your kit online. You don't have to go to a store. You don't have to go through a middleman. You don't have to worry about the markups on recommended retail price, etc. You're just getting kit that Watto has designed. He's had his mitts all over them. We talk about it all the time. And it's good gear, and it's good gear both in terms of it being cricket gear and also gear as a metaphor. I want to say that then after a while I wonder whether gear actually referred to drugs there, but no, I just mean gear as a general
not necessarily
term. No, not necessarily.
Now, I liked how you framed it as a slick customer experience. That was good.
Yeah. Well, it's a slick online journey. Is probably specifically how I'd say it.
It's a journey now, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Watto was quite slick early on, and I'm not talking about his looks, which as we all know.
Oh man, he was slippery. Watto was slippery.
Mate, Watto was 140s.
Yeah.
Watto was quick. And he was really quick and scary, but if I wanted to kind of underplay his pace as a bowler, as a bat, I'd say, he's pretty slick. And I'd curl up one side of my mouth and my cheek and my eye to the point where people would go, "What is that, mate? Is that Bell's palsy? What?"
Pez, one thing, really weird thing to say to us. What's that, mate? What do you got there? Bell's palsy?
Or something?
One thing I really like about this, Pez, is the cutting out of the middleman, because literally when you go to, let's say you go to a cafe of a morning, not in the morning, of a morning.
Yeah.
And maybe one little sweet treat there, something for the eye, something for the palate. And then the person who is the server who goes and gets you that little sweet treat for with your skim macchiato, they have to comment. They have to comment on what, it's not necessarily food shame. It's like, a little sweet treat, is it? Just let me eat the fucking donut at 7 a.m, okay? Leave me alone.
Hang on, are you
If I could get
suggesting a server says that? Like, I understand a colleague saying it. Oh, they got yourself a little sweet treat there. Like, if I'm literally selling that food for my business or representing a business, I'm not going to be kind of querying the choice. I don't know where you're getting your little sweet treats from, but that business isn't going that well, I'd suggest.
It's just Uber Eats. The delivery driver comes in. Oh, a little sweet treat, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Your tip's just been halved.
He goes.
Anyway, T20 Stars.
T20 Stars. Just also noting they don't pay the big stars for bat contracts.
Yeah.
Actually just increases the price of the bats. It's just good. It's just good sticks, and obviously Watto and the team are using kind of voices, not just us, like other people online as well, just to let you know that they are good sticks. It's good gear all around. T20stars.com.
Good sticks, good gear. All right, here he is, Todd Greenberg.
All right, we're really lucky to be joined by a man who, well, I'm going to say a few things here. He grew up with Richard Cheekwee. He was also the CEO of the National Rugby League. He's now the CEO of the Australian Cricketers Association. He joins us from downtown Islamabad, and we hope the internet connection holds up during that time. We've already sort of dropped out once or twice, but we'll do our best. And he's with the Australian cricket team. Todd Greenberg, welcome to The Grade Cricketer.
Wow, what an honour to be on this program. I just love the concept of the grade cricketer because that's about as good as I ever was, a grade cricketer. So nice to be talking to you.
Don't get in too early, Todd, because part of the allure of talking to you is that you're a Sydney grade cricketing doyen yourself. I've done some research here, 9 years at Randwick, and then Randwick Petersham, which then preceded 15 years in sports administration, much of it at the top. And you were the CEO of the NRL, which was the harsher environment, the National Rugby League or mid-90s Sydney grade cricket.
Oh, definitely mid-90s Sydney grade cricket. Toughest environment you'd ever play in and work in. But one thing I realised very quickly in my cricket career was if I was going to make any sort of contribution to sport, it was always going to be off the field, not on it. The sledging that I used to cop on the field for my lack of ability preceded my effort to go into administration rather than stay on the field.
Todd, just picking up on that, I've done, like I told you, I did some research before. There's a website that says your career started in 87, 88 for Randwick, 9 seasons there from 5th grade to 1st grade. So you played every grade. You scored 3,620 runs at 30.23. So that's to the second decimal place. 700s, 14 half centuries. 1st grade debut in 92, 93. Scored 200s in 1st grade. Question I want to know is, and that everyone's asking out there, is this is pre-my cricket. So have you poured over every scorebook from every grade to pull those stats together? And are you thrilled that no one can verify it, given that it was pre-digitisation?
Well, I love the research that's gone into my cricket career. It wouldn't have taken long to find some of those details, but I am absolutely delighted that my cricket and digitisation of scores was not around when I played. I was also very happy that social media wasn't around either, by the way. But, I made a couple of good single-figure scores that were called 20 and 30 odds that I got away with. So that was the era. And I was reflecting only recently that my first job was in cricket with Cricket New South Wales as development officer when I was a young tacker out of uni, and I shared an office with the great Trevor Bayliss, who was a Penrith grade cricketer at the time, also obviously a very good New South Wales cricketer. And he tells a very unique story that one of those 200s you talked about, and there was only a couple of them, but was made against Penrith, and he still recalls a tale that he reckons it's the worst 100 he's ever seen in his entire life. 5 hours of the most boring grade cricket he said he's ever seen.
Todd, in your time at the top of the National Rugby League, I've heard you acknowledge that you didn't want to take the soap out of the soap opera, which is part of the brand of the sport, which I suppose you have to say when you've got to deal with, Joel Monahan or Todd Carney's bubbler. And, as I say that, there's a lot of very confused Indian viewers who will now be looking up Todd Carney bubbler. When I heard you address the Justin Langer episode, though, you just seemed extremely calm. And is it fair to say that a life in rugby league leaves you well prepared for a run-of-the-mill cricket scandal?
Yeah, yeah, I haven't been asked that question before, but yeah, it's fair to say that a tough week in cricket was usually, maybe that was a normal Monday in the National Rugby League. So yeah, it holds you in good stead, and certainly you brought back some very wonderful and rich memories when you mentioned some of those incidents. So things that I've blocked out over a period of time that are now coming racing back.
Sorry.
Hey Todd, obviously we'll talk about some more pressing matters at the moment. You're obviously in Pakistan, and I think everyone knows that there was a terrorist attack in Pakistan a couple of days ago. I mean, I'm sure everyone on tour as well as everyone in the country have concerns about that. And I want to know, what sort of organisations do you link up with before the tour starts to make sure it goes ahead and ensure the safety? Is it like the AFP, anti-terror organisations, or do you just like send some blokes over to have a look at the decks?
We just threw a few blokes who we'd never met, check out the wickets, make sure there was a few beers somewhere stashed away, and away we went. So yeah, it's pretty simple, really. So it's fingers crossed, we're all good. But suffice to say, there was an enormous amount of work that's gone in, and so far so good. Although I will say one thing about Pakistan, they know how to make a flat wicket. My God, even in my shitty cricket career, I reckon I could score runs on that wicket.
So being in Pakistan, Todd, you're also there with CEO Nick Hockley, CEO of Cricket Australia. Australia, and these are probably my words, but I think others feel this way as well. Firstly, we haven't been overseas for Test cricket for a number of years, and frankly, we probably haven't come across like a good global citizen for a little while in this regard. But we're proud to see Australia there now. And it seems like Pakistan is being incredibly hospitable to Australians over there. And you can feel that vibe watching it on TV as well. How much of the decision to embark on this trip, particularly given England pulled out, New Zealand pulled out, was informed by the feeling that Australia needed to be better when it came to its role in global cricket?
Yeah, I think that is a really good question, because we can't sit back on our shores and expect India and England and New Zealand and whoever else to come and tour our place in our summer and not then reciprocate at other parts of the world at key times. And this was obviously a big decision for us to make, but an important one. And I can tell you one thing, walking around the ground each day, I've never been thanked by so many people I've never met in my life about how grateful and thankful. And the concept when you go away from home, you expect this sort of really tough environment for the players to play. Well, it's almost like you've got this absolute love and desire for the Australian cricket team, almost to the point where they're so happy when players get runs and wickets. It's really quite unique. I've never seen anything like it, that the Pakistan crowd are so happy to see Australians play. And, the day before the test match, I sat inside the team room with the players and the staff when Usman Khawaja spoke to the team passionately about what this meant. And the way he spoke, his emotional connection with the country that he was born, but he explained to the players why it was important and what they were doing and the effort to be here, that there would be kids now seeing Steve Smith and Pat Cummins and Dave Warner who maybe never, ever thought they would see them play cricket live in person. And, that opportunity is not lost on any of us, certainly not lost on the players. I mean, let's face it, there's a generation of Australian cricketers who've never been afforded the chance to play Test cricket in Pakistan. And now these players today are playing here. Cameron Green wasn't even a twinkle in his parents' eye back 24 years ago, and he's now playing on this ground. So that's not lost on us. And hopefully we get through this tour safely and it's successful, and other countries start to come and play here in Pakistan, and we help them, return effectively what's superpower of cricket back to its rightful place.
That's pretty cool. Todd, I want to ask you how Pat Cummins is doing. He's obviously a smart guy. He's educated, and he's gorgeous. But how's he doing? Because in his first 3 months in the role, I mean, he's been given the job in fairly extreme circumstances after the Tim Payne thing, and then half the country wanted Steve Smith to get it back, and there was some anger around that. Then the coach he doesn't get his contract renewed, or he steps down, and the country blames the current captain, including former legends. Then he's touring Pakistan for the first time in 30 years. And then maybe Australia's greatest ever player passes away, and he's the face of the current team. I mean, this is I'm not sure baptism of fire is the right words, but you know what I mean? It's a pretty intense introduction to the job, and he's a young dad as well. So how's he doing?
Yeah, and on top of that, he got COVID leading into the Adelaide test, and then gets over here and tries to open the bowling on what looks like the Hume Highway, and it doesn't move. So, yeah, he's had a tough start. There's no doubt about that. And the circumstances around this game were unbelievable. With Rod Marsh passing, and then the news that Warnie had passed as the players are coming off the field. So, you're right. They've thrown some challenges at him. But as you say, he's a high quality person. He's a phenomenal cricketer, obviously. But geez, I reckon we're fortunate to have him in the leadership role because the players gravitate to him, the players follow him. And one thing with Pat is he doesn't leave you in any uncertainty about what he's thinking or what he stands for. So when he's got something to say, he'll say it. So maybe a bit like working in the National Rugby League and then coming to cricket, you might as well get a few tough ones at the beginning because it's always going to get easier on the other side.
Todd, I think there'd be a lot of sort of everyday cricket fans out there who wouldn't be, because they've got other things to do in their lives, really well versed in the role of the head of the ACA versus the CEO of Cricket Australia and the way the administration kind of works with each other or against each other for the betterment of cricket. And when I think about the ACA and you in particular looking after the players, the biggest issue that comes to mind for me is this overarching, endlessly evolving question about club versus country. And I'd love to know where you fall into that. So, the big question to me is about the obligation of players, particularly as it relates to the IPL. As the IPL expands, players administrators have to sort of find the right posture to look after the players, but also the national team. We're already in a situation in Australia, and I know it's more so in other countries, but in Australia where clearly the IPL for the players is more important than some national fixtures, not all, but some of them. What's your view on how that should be managed?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not surprised that people can't quite figure out what ACA and CA do because they're both run by a couple of bald blokes. So you might get us confused a little bit between Nick and I, and that's okay. But look, it's probably going to be the most difficult question to answer over the next decade, I reckon, for global cricket. And Australian cricket will be no different because we still want players to play for their country, and clearly the baggy green still represents the sort of pinnacle of our sport. But in saying that, the IPL is affording players some very significant commercial opportunities. I mean, let's face it, any one of us and any of the people listening to this will always consider the amount of money that you can earn in a short period of time, and cricketers are no different to that. So I get a sense they're not mutually exclusive, though. I think we can work together and figure out how we can schedule windows where players can get opportunity to play in the IPL, but still represent their country. In some other countries, that boat's already sailed. I mean, if you look at New Zealand, there'll be players who'll miss the next test match for the Kiwis because they're playing in the IPL. And I don't want us to get to that point. I don't think we will, by the way, but it's going to be important that we communicate really well together on the schedule so players can have the ability to do both.
Yeah, just on that, Todd, I think it's a good answer, and I think it's good to be able to say how, let's work out how we can do both. But we see and for the record as well, we cover the IPL heavily and we like it, and it's a great competition. But we do see it expanding, and if you follow Australia, you sort of go, well, India gets an exclusive window to do their domestic tournament. Where there's no other international cricket on, basically, during that time. And yet other countries have to put their domestic tournaments in and around international cricket. And it creates it's not really a level playing field. Like, is there any weaponry or machinery there that where you might have to push back against the BCCI somehow? Or is it just if they want to expand, you got to work around it, because we've spoken to previous CEOs, and every time we ask them, do you get champed by the BCCI? They say yes. What can be done?
Well, if you're talking weaponry and machinery, if I look out my window, there's a whole bucket load of that at the front of the Pakistan Hotel today. I can tell you that much. Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of people getting champed by the BCCI in the future, and you're not suggesting that the BCCI are wielding too much power out there, Sam? Surely, I mean, that'd be
I'm just saying that diplomacy
Right.
requires different tools at different times, and it's nice to work with the BCCI and to recognize where the power is. But surely there's got to be times when you sort of have to push back. How do you even do that?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a reverse champ under that model, but I'm not sure how to go in India when I try and do that one. I might be sent packing if I do that one too quickly in my tenure.
This interview is actually brought to you by the BCCI. We should have said that at the top. How does the ACA support a guy like Will Bukowski? Now his troubles are obviously well documented, but and it's obviously Will's decision if he wants to play or what. But have you had conversations with Will, about his future and what that looks like for him if cricket doesn't work out for him?
Yeah, I think more broadly, the opportunity for me to quickly talk about what the ACA does, and Will's a good example, is we're there to become the support and conduit for both former players, former first class and test players, right through to the current players who are contracted across both states and for our country. So that's male and female players. So a huge part of what we do is providing some level of balance in their lives so that cricket is not the only part and portion of their future. So in other words, someone, as an example, like Pat Cummins, when he was injured, the amount of education he did to better himself, to prepare himself for life after cricket is really important. And so we find that if a player's only and solely worried about the next cover drive or, the next delivery he's going to bowl, then effectively his life won't be as easy in transition potentially as somebody else's. So there's a huge amount of work that goes underway for wellbeing and education for our players, preparing themselves for life after cricket. That doesn't start the day you announce your retirement, and it starts years in advance. And I could sit here and talk for hours about the number of players who've made great strides to prepare themselves for life after cricket. And someone like Will, obviously we're putting a huge support network around him, a lot of specialists giving him advice, and making sure that he gets the opportunity to play, but does it safely. And his, well-being and welfare is also very, very important. So, again, he's a very unique case, but there are lots of others within the ACA that we're helping for those exact reasons.
Todd, in 2017, you might recall there was a pretty big pay dispute between Cricket Australia and the ACA. Don't know if you remember.
Hadn't heard about it, no.
You were busy with Todd Carney. Sorry. No doubt you're actually, this is already an improvement on the scenario back then where it didn't even seem like there was any conversation between CA and the ACA. But, you're over in Pakistan with Nick Hockley. No doubt you're talking to him about it over there. There's been a lot of change at CA. I'm sure the pandemic has crunched things a little as well. The deal expires pretty soon, around about now. Like, how are things shaping for the next one? Does it, and maybe to give it some context, what does this deal mean for everyday cricket people, like volunteers, parents, kids, grassroots players, when it comes to funding?
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, you haven't read anything in the newspapers about it, so that's got to be a good start. So the discussions we're having between CA and ACA are being done as you would expect they're done, a little professionally and under the radar, so to speak. But look, in its simplest form, the players enjoy a model whereby they get a percentage of the revenue. So as players, they help generate the revenue, and so they get a percentage of that revenue, which is fine, right? So it makes sense when you think about it that if the players help the game grow revenue, the players win and everybody else wins. So that's the partnership that I'm trying to take forward with Cricket Australia, rather than have angst and antagonism and a massive fight between the organisations, which historically has been done. I'm trying to take a different approach, and that doesn't mean for 1 minute that we're going to agree on everything, by the way, right? So that doesn't mean we're not going to have some disagreements and some arguments, because of course we will. That's the sort of nature of the beast. But if we help Cricket Australia grow revenue, the players will win from that, and they'll be seen as partners in the game. And a huge part of that is making sure that we would call in sports terms the bottom of the pyramid, the grassroots, the volunteers, the people that are the lifeblood of the sport, get well looked after with enough funding.
Todd Greenberg, thanks so much for coming on the show and for braving the Wi-Fi. And I think everyone would be really happy that you and Nick Hockley are over there helping to bring Australian cricket to Pakistan and just helping Australia be a better global citizen when it comes to cricket.
Thanks for having me on The Great Cricketer. One of my great achievements to finally make it on your show. So thanks for having me.
Thank you very much to Todd Greenberg over there in Islamabad. I think he actually might be back in Australia now, but then he wasn't. So he was sort of on the ground there, which is the most important thing for us and for that last sort of 20 minutes or so in your ears. Pez, before we wrap up the show with some sentimental thoughts from the people out there about Shane Warne, we obviously need to segue nicely and thank Manscaped. It's what he would have wanted. It's what he would have wanted.
Yeah, I mean...
Come on.
I'm not going to be so crass as to say, buy these Manscaped products. It's what Warnie would have wanted. Not yet. That'll be, a few weeks' time. Yeah, look, I've got some copy in front of me. He goes, now they're talking about the Ultra Premium collection for your not
the Ultra Premium collection. It's Ultra Premium.
It's still the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 with skin-safe technology, which reduces cuts to your most delicate areas. As I've always said.
Yeah, first thing you've said to me every morning.
Yeah, every single morning. But you can. But I suppose that so the lawnmower's the mothership. The lawnmower is that's the big boy. That's the big boss. That's the final boss. When you open up the beautifully packaged Manscaped material, that's what you're really looking for.
It has a package on it.
That's the thing that cuts the hair. That's fine. But there's accoutrements around it, and I know we focus on the lawnmower. I know we focus on the lawnmower quite a lot, but in the premium collection, if that somehow gets you over the line, and please let it get you over the line, it helps us really. I mean, if it's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
But there's Manscaped premium deodorant, not for your balls. It's for your stanky armpits. This is American.
Yeah.
It dries clear. It's aluminium free. It smells like their signature scent. Does it smell like a signature scent? I can hear you asking. What's it smell like? The signature scent of Manscaped. You beauty. You beautner.
Mate, how good.
Right, how good. As long as it's got the signature scent. I know that smell. Okay, I know who had a signature scent. Lynx Java in 1999 around the locker room. Anyway,
I was more of an African man myself.
I was an African man too. I thought it was a nicer scent, Africa, than Java. Anyway, I'm sure Manscaped appreciates that. Hydrating body moisturizer. It says, have you got tattoos or issues with dry skin? You ever thought about a tattoo?
I've thought about it. Like both my siblings have tattoos, but I
really
never even had a look at one really. I just don't think it would suit me.
Where would it be? So what would it say? Sort of mainly 2s, 3s?
It'd be on my lower back and saying life in the medium fast lane. Keeping up to the stumps. Just thinking about my autobiography now. Ian Higgins, keeping up.
That's right. It's also you also get body wash, which actually, as people are asking, is to lather you up with their infused aloe vera and sea salt shower gel.
That's right.
2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, plus a free gift 3-pack set of lip balm. That's made up with.
I've used lip balm.
Yeah.
Did I tell you this? How when I literally came back from the States and then there was a package in my hallway of the building that I live in.
Oh yeah.
And there's just fucking all sorts of just ball wipes and deodorant, lip balms, all waiting for me to sort out my shit after my long flight.
This is important. All the products are cruelty free, paraben free, vegan friendly, and dye free.
I like that.
Yeah, so that's nice. So hop in the shower and scrub a dub that body. All right. So go to manscaped.com. You can get that premium collection with 20% off plus free shipping if you use the code TGC.
Nice one, Pez. All right, this is the way to wrap up the show. Pez, you want to set it up and wrap up the show for us? Thank you very much to Todd Greenberg, by the way. Thanks as ever for listening to this show, to all the other shows, and to the Shane Warne special we did for the patrons out there, for everyone on YouTube who watched the week that was. But yeah, Pez, take it away.
We received, in response to our offer for people to send in their tributes and their thoughts via written word or DM or voice messages especially, multiple hundreds of responses, and it was really touching. And yesterday I listened to every single one, which was, it was actually a really special thing to do. And we wanted to basically hand over the show to you guys, because there are a lot of people who want to say something about what Shane Warne meant to them. And there aren't a lot of platforms or outlets out there for that, at least in a broadcasting sense. And so I stitched together there was probably about 60 voice messages, and I stitched together about 40. So this goes for half an hour if you want to listen to it. It may be for some, it may not be for others. Those that aren't in there, I apologize profusely. It was either due to a technical or a sound issue, and I couldn't get it in there. Everyone else's voice messages, they're in there in full fidelity. Nothing is cut. And as I was doing it, obviously I was looking up Warnie as it went on, and I thought it would be nice to set it to a little bit of background music just to give it a little bit of color. And I thought, well, what better way to give it background music than to look up the musicians that were in his mural, which were Elvis Presley, Bruce Springsteen, Frank Sinatra, Mick Jagger, and Coldplay. And because of the length of these, I needed one more song. And I researched Warnie, and I learnt that a quote that he often, or a song that he often went to when discussing death was "Come Undone" by Robbie Williams. And it was about not being afraid of dying, but just wanting to live and just loving life. And so if you're watching on YouTube, you're not going to get these songs because we'll just get a copyright strike and it will just be taken down. But if you're listening to the podcast version, that's the music that's going to sit underneath. We'll just roll the dice on it. And I feel like Warnie and a lot of those artists might be cool with that. Thank you for all the messages. They came from all over the world. You'll hear many different countries represented in there. This is for you guys. This is what you guys were thinking about Shane Warne. Enjoy.
Hi, Sam. Hi, Higo. It's Tommy here. It's 1:20 in Manchester, in the UK. And I just want to tell you how much I fucking love Shane Warne. As an Englishman, there's a sense of Stockholm Syndrome or masochism in it. But no, I don't think there is. He's just a genius. He was a genius. He is a genius. He will always be a genius. There's a reason he's called the King. He, for me, for my money, is the greatest sports person of all time. And me and my dad had this discussion when we were very drunk after the Cricket World Cup when in 2019. It's just one of those father-son debates, but we both agreed Shane Warne was number one out of any sport. No one could do what he could do, and he traversed celebrity and sport. And I don't think I've ever been so shocked and saddened by a celebrity's death. He's not a celebrity, though. He's a god. He's a king. And he's the reason that Test cricket is what it is today, and the reason it's probably still alive. So, yeah, I love that man so much. And Higo's tweet keeps making me cry. I've cried a lot today, but the one about him knowing that we all loved him, it really hit deep. So I hope you boys are okay. Big love from England, from Manchester. I love Shane Warne.
I remember I was in Pakistan and I used to wake up at 4 a.m. just to watch Shane Warne. I tried bowling like him. I think we all did. But we couldn't. Rest in peace, King. Rest in peace.
I just wish we'd had a leggy like him. Absolute legend.
He was talking about part-time jobs, and it was just terrible content and how he kept changing the subject. Anyway, finally, Warnie's like, look, just going back to that part-time jobs piece, I used to deliver pizzas, and Friday nights I'd get $14 for the whole shift, and after my shift I'd buy 2 pizzas for $14 and eat them both. And then I got picked for Australia to play tests, and I worked there every Friday the whole first year I played for Australia. What a legend.
Everyone talks about like role models for kids and stuff, but role models for like where's my role model? You know, Shane was my role model. smoking darts, on the beers. Liz Hurley, come on. Oh, yeah, and he could spin your fucking face off.
Growing up playing cricket in the streets of Mumbai in the 90s, there were only three kinds of kids. One who mimicked Tendulkar's batting form, second who mimicked McGraw's bowling action, and third who mimicked Warnie's bowling action. The entire city would come to a halt when Australia and India played against each other, and Warnie versus Tendulkar was all we spoke about the next day in school. I know India will miss Warnie very much, but for me, a part of my childhood has been lost forever. Rest in peace, King.
Really sad poem here, trying to tune in from across many seas, just to say that I cannot begin to overstate the impact that I feel Shane Warne has had, not only on my cricketing career but on my life. I was born in 1998, and the 2005 Ashes left me reveling in the shadows of two men, and those men were Freddie Flintoff and Shane Warne. However, Shane Warne and his persona off the field, his rock and roll lifestyle, the way that he took his personality to every forefront of every confrontation he came across, led me to breaking windows in my mum's house for 4 or 5 years after I had after those Ashes had finished. He was a true champion of the game. He has inspired me to continue playing cricket to this day. That is now 16, 17 years on. And I think of him whenever I go out to bowl, whether that's for the MCC or whether that's for my local cricket club. But there is no way to overstate the influence that Shane Warne has had, not only on the game of cricket in Australia, but the game of cricket globally. And I am one of those people that has been influenced and will continue to be influenced. And
growing up in the 90s in New Zealand, we had a pretty average team, and seeing Australia being basically world champions and world dominating everyone was hard to take. But there were two players that really stood above, and I began to respect. And that was Mark Waugh and Shane Warne. Mark Waugh had his bat, the V100, but Shane Warne, he was the reason I started leg spin bowling when I was a kid. He transcended the sport. I mean, even I remember watching him in Christchurch in an ODI in 1999, and he took 3 for 50, and just every time he came on to bowl, the crowd just knew they were watching one of the world's greats. And not many players come along like that, and I think to say that we're all in shock is a bit of an understatement, but I'm just truly thankful that we got to witness it as well. Gone far too soon. R.I.P. the King.
Warnie, you legend. What a superstar you were. Best number one sportsman across any sport for me as a young Kiwi growing up playing cricket. If you were on telly, I dropped everything to see you play. You're an artist, an absolute artist. The world is a lesser place now that you're gone. What a legend.
There's certain individuals that have an impact on the world, and unfortunately, these individuals often have a shorter lifespan. And Shane, you were one of those people, and I'm sorry. But all I can say is thank you. Thank you for bringing me happiness. Thank you for bringing our country happiness. Thank you for bringing the globe and the cricketing world happiness. And most importantly, thank you for making me feel safe for all of the years of my life. I cannot think of a time that you were not in my life. You are the king, sir. Say what you say, and say what you say about him, but you were 100% yourself, and you never shied away from that. And it's an absolute fact that you were a good man. You were a good man, and I respect that. So thank you. Thank you for showing me light, and thank you for having a life unique to anybody else's. It's a sad day. It's a really sad day. You didn't deserve this, and I'm sorry. But thank you. Thank you, Shane. You will be remembered in the most wonderful, wonderful way.
Fuck you, Marlon. In all honesty, Shane Warne, you're a legend.
Yeah, I met Shane at the Jade Buddha Bar. I've had a couple of beers, sorry. In Brisbane on the first night of the Ashes, 2010, and none of the other fuckwits would come and say good day. No one would shake your hand, but Shane was happy to. It's unbelievable. Yeah, we'd all had a fair few 4Xs and whatnot. Shane was there to, yeah, oh, mate. We had a yarn. We had a few stories. He was the man that we could relate to, you know. Yeah, Vale Shane.
As an Englishman, Shane Warne, tormentor, but boy did I wish he played for England. Fantastic, legend, words cannot sum up. Absolutely stunned, shocked. Rest in peace, Warnie.
Hello, boys. It's a real shock to me. I'm an Englishman in my mid-40s, and Warnie was the constant in my kind of conscious cricket life. I used to sneak off to the school library to read the Cricketer magazine every time it came out every month to hear about this young man, and kind of smirked a little bit when he was coming to England as the destroyer after seeing what happened in his debut in India and all that. But my God, what a man he was. It's just, I loved him, despite the fact he spent all his time embarrassing us. The greatest cricketer I've ever seen set foot on the field, and I've seen a few. 2005 Ashes was one of the greatest performances of any player I've ever seen. And, the guy was just amazing. And, I'll really miss him, and I was really shocked, more shocked than I've been by anything. But, the real king, and the way he played with such his smile on his face, his enjoyment, his intelligence, he was a bit of a boy as well. We all like that. And, it's a great shame. And I'm sure I won't feel it as much as many others, but I miss the guy. And, gutted, really.
Jay here from Bombay. Absolutely devastated this morning. Since last night, actually. I saw the pop-up on my phone. I was just about to step out for dinner. And yes, I was in tears. I couldn't believe it. My hero died. My idol. I grew up idolizing him, Tendulkar, Ricky Ponting in the 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, I don't think I've slept much. I've just been on my phone reading all the tributes, watching his videos. Absolutely devastated. He was a complete legend. Just hearing him talk about cricket, whether it was in the commentary box or in an interview or in an article, he spoke so much sense. He spoke his heart. He was honest to himself. He was one of the greatest sportsmen ever. India misses him. India loves Shane. We all love him here. It's a very, very hard pill to swallow. Personally for me as well. He made such an impact in my life. He doesn't even know that. That's the sad part. And I'm sure he's done that for millions of other people. Condolences to his family. We will miss you, Shane. We love you. Rest in peace, King.
It feels so contrived to eulogise the surest of legends in truncated Twitter obituary. And I guess there's much being said about the showman and the larrikin and all the pomp and circumstance, but I just want to build a small monument to his genius. The raw phenomenological purity of a master in his discipline. He demonstrated artisanal, mechanical, relentless perfection of form and pace and flight, I know, Pez, you've acknowledged this before, but he was a physical exhibition of beauty and aesthetics, a paradigm creator, and a pedagogical influence to forthcoming generations. I guess, to me, that's how he was transcendental, to not only dominate the limelight for his character, but also occupy the scarce realm of sporting deification afforded simply by becoming the absolute solitary sovereign of his discipline. One of the most skillful athletes in history, who leaves a gulf of meaning in his wake, and we're all indebted to his legend. Take care, boys. Bold Shane.
Everyone talks about that Mike Gatting ball, but the first ball I ever watched live on TV was the ball he bowled in 2005 to Andrew Strauss at Edgbaston. I was hooked on cricket ever since. I was 9 years old then. I'm 25 now. I'm a cricket tragic, and I'm still shit at the sport.
Hey, boys. Rest in peace, Shane Warne, a fucking Australian sporting icon. The Australian sporting icon. Honestly, I thought he was immortal. I am fucking very shocked when I woke up this morning to see the news. Might get around in a trolley for the next week, I suppose. Honour him, bit of trolley stuff, get me dad to build it for me and all that. But yeah, rest in peace to the fucking king, baby.
Boxing Day 2006, sitting behind his arm, high in the grandstand at the MCG. Victoria's favourite son, ripping one out of the rough. 700th wicket, wheeling away like an absolute madman. As there was no better moment in my sporting memory.
There is so much you can say about Shane Warne and so much I want to say. And all of this, I don't know, I think the thing that stands out to me, like I cried this morning. I was in, tribute to Shane. I was on the circuit when I found out, and there was a shock and there was an emptiness and it felt weird to be there. And then I woke up this morning and I saw a story, and everyone was sharing stories across Twitter about Warnie, and there was one that got, and they've all got the same common thread, but this one was funny, and it was, we went to a buffet and there's Shane Warne and he's just demolishing nothing but an entire bucket of prawns, like just prawns, which is hilarious. But all these stories, there's heaps of them. They go around. Everyone's got a Warnie story, and there's this common warmth through all of them. There's this common zest through all of them, and I think it was Ben Jones who tweeted, and he was like, "Oh, everyone's got a Warnie story, but none of these are in Warnie's top 100." It's an incredible character, and as a result, he goes tweeted and said, "I hope he knew how much we loved him," and often we forget how much we mean to those around us, and it's easy to be lost when you don't, in transience. But I think more than anyone, he did. I'm fairly certain, yeah, he did. He just wanted to be loved.
Wish you were English. We only wish you were English. Thank you, King.
Growing up in Scotland, it's not such a cricketing culture, but growing up with an English dad, you're exposed to cricket quite early, and Shane Warne was the man that made me fall in love with this stupid game we all play. And for that, I'll always be forever thankful, because it's one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life. I love this game, and it's all Shane Warne's fault. The man was the king. He was the king, and I really hope he knew how much he meant to not just Australians, not just English people, but people from outside the traditional kind of cricket countries. But he was the king, and he's gone to far too soon. Rest in power, King. Rest in power.
What did Shane Warne mean? Well, he was a whole lot more than just a great cricketer. He was part of our culture. A couple of
couple of weeks ago, Ricky Ponting was at my daughter's cricket club here in Melbourne signing autographs, and which was great. My wife turned to friends and had to ask who it was, and that's not to denigrate punter, the greatest Australian player I've seen, greatest Australian batsman I've seen. But my wife wouldn't have a clue. Can't stand cricket. Wouldn't have a clue. This morning when I turned on my phone and turned to her and told her the news, she was utterly shocked and very upset. And I think that's probably testament to what Warnie meant to us. He's so much more than a cricketer. He's part of our culture. Rest in peace, Warnie.
If you grew up in the 90s or the 2000s in England and you were playing playground cricket, corridor cricket, backyard cricket, real cricket, the universal response to a good ball being bowled was bowling Shane.
When he bowled Strauss round his legs, God, I fell in love with cricket. Rest in peace, King.
In 2007, almost a year after he had retired from Test cricket, I had the pleasure of actually seeing Shane Warne in the flesh. He had come to this local competition in Hong Kong representing an all-star team, and he was the captain. And despite having Lara, Kumble, and McGrath, Warne was the key attraction. So no other cricketer, I think, has transcended transcended boundaries as much as Shane Warne has. It really shook me to hear about his death, and I'm sure it shook all cricket fans all around the world. I just want to give my condolences to his family, his children, and his parents, and all of his friends and admirers all over the world.
Yeah, just completely devastated about this one. So I'm an Indian fan, but I think with cricketers, right, or just cricket lovers, right, you're a cricket fan first, and then you think about which country you support. And if you're a cricket fan, Shane Warne is your idol. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're Indian or Australian or English or whatever. Like Shane Warne is your idol. And more so than other greats, like obviously within India there's Sachin, etc. Shane Warne has been so public, both in and out of cricket, of course, for so long, even after retiring. He's so involved. He's just a complete part of your cricketing watching and experiencing journey that losing him is as big a loss as you can actually. I mean, it is the biggest loss that you can possibly imagine for the cricketing world, if you ask me. And I was just trying to think, when is it going to be normal that there is no Shane Warne? I actually don't think that exists. I think for the next 3 to 5 years, we will feel him not being around, like very, very explicitly. But I don't think that feeling will ever really go away. Rest in peace, Warnie. We fucking love you, man. I mean, we really, really. If you're a cricket fan, you fucking love Shane Warne, and you will be missed. Thank you.
Shane Warne was an absolute mammoth of a man. As an English fan growing up in the 2000s, it is no exaggeration to say he had a hugely direct influence on the earliest years of my love for the game, and was the first bowler I became infatuated by. I have friends and family for whom he was the reason they started bowling leg spin, his mannerisms copied in gardens and nets everywhere, as bowling Shane-O was shrieked with delight by whoever was keeping wicket. He transcended loyalties, transcended the Ashes rivalry, and captivated the hearts and minds of all those who had the honour of watching him bowl. More so, however, Shane Warne the commentator, the personality, has been a near constant presence in my cricket watching life. His work for Sky in the UK and the famous good morning greeting of "Good morning NASA, good morning everyone" will be etched in my memory forever. He was everywhere, and everyone at home felt like they knew Shane, even if he sometimes erred into Aussie bias. But who would have it any other way? He never apologised for being himself, for the hair, the earring, the brilliant way in which he ribbed and joked with the English. He was a true genius, a master of his craft, and in my mind undoubtedly the best to ever do it. The cricketing world, and indeed the entire world, will be a poorer and less colourful place without Warnie. Long live the King.
We only wish you were English, wish you were English. We only wish you were English. R.I.P. Warnie.
I think similar to the procedure when the Queen eventually dies, all Australian news anchors for the next 7 days should be eating meat pies and having a couple darts live on air just out of sheer respect for the brilliant man.
On earth, it was Court Marsh Bowl Lily. In heaven, it's going to be Court Marsh Bowl Warnie. R.I.P. you two legends. Thank you for giving us the pleasure. Your legend will live forever and ever and ever.
Hi lads, from Glasgow, Scotland. Warnie managed to transcend a game that we here do not give a fuck about. He managed to do something that every Scotsman dreamed of and made the English look like useless bastards. Cheers.
Just, we wish you were English. We only wish you were English. Rest in peace. And for one last time, life will never be the same. Bowling Shane.
Shane's legacy will not be recalled in wickets taken or matches won, although there were many, but in the inspiration he fostered in his generation and in future generations, in the interest and love he grew in our game, and his incalculable contribution to the Australian psyche and the Australian story.
So my lasting memory as a New Zealander of Shane Warne is 99 out. The man dominated us for years. Like, New Zealand is bad at playing spin, especially in the 90s, God. And but worse against playing Warne. He terrorized us. Like, games would start off well, Warne would come on. I'm like, it's over, we're fucked. And we were. So for all the wickets, though, there was one test match, Warner's there between the batters and the bowlers, not quite an all-rounder, but sort of the bridge to the tail. And I was like, well, if we can just get Warne out, we're here for a chance, some test. And he was just smashing us everywhere this day. And I went past 50 crews, and I'm like, no fucking way he's scoring a century. Like, we will never live this down. Like, all the wickets and all the crazy ballsy bowls, this is going to be his career highlight. He's going to score a century, and it has to be versus New Zealand. And praise the Lord, 99 out to a no ball. These days you might have DRS, but not back then. And so for all of his domination versus us, we will always have that 99 out. Rest in peace, King.
Hey guys, I'm just gutted today. Really shocked by the news of Warnie. I was an Indian kid who migrated from Kenya in the late 80s, and I don't know, just watching Warnie growing up when I was a kid, he just made me feel like I could be part of Australia. Made me feel you could do things which were unbelievable. I'm just really going to miss him. So, yeah, thoughts with the family, but he'll be truly missed, and I hope he knows how much we loved him. Cheers, guys.